Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to Questpond's YouTube channel. And today what are we learning? Today we are learning Python in flat 60 minutes. Yes, you read that topic right. It is Python in flat 60 minutes. Now I can see a lot of people raising their eyebrows, thinking that how can you learn Python in 60 minutes, because Python is such a huge language, such a vast language with so many features, with so many modules and so many frameworks, extended frameworks, right? So how can you teach Python in flat 60 minutes? So here is my experience. I have been teaching Python on questpond.com. Also, I have been teaching Python in my Mumbai office. That is at Step by Step Schools. If you are interested, you can come to online for learning. If you are from Mumbai, you can come to my institute and learn, right? What I've understood, from all these teachings is that, students do overlearning. So when they sit for learning Python, they overlearn. For example, I've seen students spending a whole day only on data types of Python. And then I've seen students learning multi-threading for 3-4 days. And when they start doing that, they learn without a goal. And at one point of time, they are confused, why they have learned so much. And with that, they lose stamina, and eventually, they lose interest over that subject. So if we can take up a small project or a small module which we can execute, and for that project and for that module what we want to learn, if we learn, then that would be more focused learning. And as you execute those small projects and small module, you will feel confident, you will feel motivated, and you will have the interest in the lessons as well, right? So in this 60 minutes, what I will do is I'll take up a small project, where we have number of people versus weight lifted. So we have a history data where we have number of people versus weight lifted. So let us say you have 2 people. So 2 people can pick up, let us say 10 kgs, and then 3 people can pick up 15 kgs, and so on. So if we have 15 people, then how much they can lift, right? So I want to go and train this. I want to take this data and I want to train the machine, and then I want to go and give the input of the number of people, and the machine should answer as per the history, as per he has got trained. He will answer me saying that this much weight can be lifted. So let us try to achieve this small project. Let us try to execute this small project, right? Now for this project, whatever is needed, this is what we will learn in this 60 minutes. So you can see I have outlined like 18 chapters out here. So we will start first with installing Python. Then we will try to understand the different variables, data types. We will try to create a function. We will do for loops. We will do else conditions, if conditions, arrays. We will learn how to read from text files. And then finally, we will apply linear regression using sklearn and complete our project. But the first thing is, let us first try to understand, to execute your first Python hello world, what do we need? What kind of frameworks we have to install? What kind of IDEs we have to install? So let us get started. So now in order to start with Python, there are 2 things. One is we need the Python framework, and one is we need a Python IDE. That is means a development environment. So first thing, let us download the framework. So to get the framework, you need to go to python.org, and you can go to this downloads and get the recent download, whatever is there of Python. For example, at this moment, we have Python 3.7.4. You can go and download Python 3.7.4. Depending on whatever operating system you have, you need to select the appropriate setup. So once you install the setup, for example, at this moment I have a Windows operating system, so I've installed this setup. Then you can go and you can check if Python is installed or not by going to this command line. So if you go to this command line, you can go and just try to print a statement of Python just saying hello, and this will help you to check if Python has been installed successfully or not. If Python has been installed successfully, this command prompt will echo back on hello. So this confirms that my Python is installed successfully, and it also shows me which version it has installed, right? So that is the first thing. The second thing is you need to go and download an editor, an IDE. For that, you can use something called as Pycharm. So you can Google Pycharm download, right? It will take you to the JetBrains site. JetBrains is the company which actually has created Pycharm. And in this, you can see that there are 2 downloads. One is a professional edition, and the other one is a community edition. I would say that start with community edition because it is free, you can test it and so on. So I have installed Pycharm also in my computer, and That's where you can see the Pycharm community edition. So to start with Python, you need two things. One is you need the framework which has all the necessary libraries which will help you to build the Python application. And the second is you need an editor, for which we have chosen Pycharm, because Pycharm is the most used IDE, at least to my knowledge, when it comes for Python. So first thing, ensure that these two things are downloaded in your computer. So now that we have the necessary setup installed in our computer for Python, so let us quickly open up Pycharm. Let us create a simple hello world project and let us try to run it, right? So I'm going to go to Pycharm here. So there it is, Pycharm, and there you can see it is opening up the community edition, and I will say create a new project. So I'm going to go and create a new project, and let us name this as lab1. So, and I'll say just say create. So now what Pycharm will do is it will actually go and create an environment where it will put all the necessary files which is needed to execute that project. So you can see that he is creating a virtual environment with all the necessary project things. You can also go and you can look at tips if you want to, but at this moment let us just close this. There you can see at the left hand side now we have the Python project created by Pycharm, right? So let us now quickly go and add a Python file and let us try to print hello, right? So I'm going to go and say add a new Python file, you can see over here, and I will just say this is hello world. Now all the Python files are named by the .py extension. So you can see this hello world, he has put the name as .py, right? And let us quickly go and try to just say print hello, right? And let us try to run this. To run this project from this from the Pycharm IDE, you have to click on run and you have to say run. Once you click on run, it says that okay, which is the first Python file which you want me to run. At this moment we just have hello world, but let us say if in this project we had hello world 1 and hello world 2, then I would have to make the appropriate choice. So at this moment I just have one file and I will just say run it, and you can see down in the console it is showing me hello. So very easy to create the first Python hello world. Open up Pycharm, create a project, add a .py file and just say print hello. Python is a case sensitive language. In other words, for example, you can see that this is print. In print function of Python, all the letters are small. But if you try to go and put a capital P out here, and if you try to run this, you will get an exception here saying that print is not defined. So Python is case sensitive. When you talk about application programming, or when you talk about programming, one of the very important things in programming is you would like to store the values of your data into some temporary place, and that is termed as a variable. So in Python, if you want to go and declare a variable, you have to just say x is equal to 10. So this sentence out here goes and creates a variable x with the value 10. As compared to C#, or C++, or any other language, right, where you have to go and you have to explicitly say like int x equal to 10. Here it is more inferred. Inferred means it will look at the right hand side, it will look at the data what is there on the right hand side, and then decide what is the data type of x. So if you go and if you try to do a print here, and if you try to see that okay, what is the type of x, you should see that it will show as integer data type. You can see int. If you go and if you say 100.23, let's say, it will then show as float. And if you go and if you say that this is let's say some string, it will go and it will show it as an str, right? So to start with, we can say that there are three data types to start with. Actually there are not three data types, there are a lot of data types in Python, but to make your learning easy, we can say that there are three data types at this moment. One is we have the number has two parts, two types. One is the integer, the second one is a float, and the string is a string, which can consist of characters and numbers and so on, right? Now Python is a dynamic language. So for example, now let us say if you say print x is equal to 10, let's say, so this is an integer, but nobody stops you to make in the next line x is equal to shiv. So this does not give me any kind of error. So it is dynamic. In other words, something which is a number now can become a string, and something which is a string can become an object, and something which is an object can become an image, right? So you can see here now in the first line I'm saying that this is x is equal to 10. So this will display as integer, but in the next line I'm just giving shiv, and Python will not complain me about it, and it will say yes, this is a type string, right? So if I go and if I run this, you can see that I don't get any exceptions. So in the first type it is showing me as int, in the next line it is showing me as string. So Python is a dynamic language. If you want to go and do comments in Python, if you look at C and C++, it is normally done by the slash, right, double slash, but over here we have hash. So we can say this is an example of data types, right? So if you want to do comments, it is hash. One of the most important concepts which you need to understand while you are learning Python is to understand that how white spaces, indentations and new line, they govern the whole Python syntax. So what I will do here is, we can see that we have this hello world. Let us go ahead and rename this. So I'll just go and rename this to data types. So you can see I went to refactor and I type data types. So now let us go ahead and let us try to add a new Python file, and let us see that how we can go and we can create a function in Python. So now let us say I want to go and create a function in Python. So you can see here, let's say this is function, or we'll say subroutines.py, right? So now let us say we want to go and define a subroutine or a function in Python. The way it works is we have to first say the word def. So this def stands for definition, and let us say I'm going to go and define a method called as my method, and then after the method name you will put the round brackets, and then you will say this colon out here, right? So this indicates that now you have completed with the method name. And now if you want to go and write syntaxes, or if you want to go and write some code inside the method, you can just say this is some code 1, right? And then you can press enter and you can say this is some code 2 and so on, right? Now if you want to go and define the end of this method, right, then what you need to do is you need to go and press delete. So you need to go and remove the white spaces and come back to that place of indentation where you started the definition of the method. So for example, you can see here now I'm writing some other code here called as code 3, right? So now this code 3 is outside this function. So if you go and if you define your indentation at the start of the method, that defines the end of the method. So basically out here, if I go and if I define this inside like this, then code 3 will become the part of my method. So in Python, they have kept things simple. So rather than having all those curly brackets, which the C, C++ and Java guys do and C# guys do, they have just removed all that complexity, and they have relied on indentation and white spaces. So if you go and start the white space at the start of the method name, then it doesn't become the part of the method, and whatever is there inside the indentation of the method, in other words, this one, yes, this is the part of the method. This one, yes, it is the part of the method, right? So this indentation and white spaces, they define the start and end of functions, methods, classes, and so on in Python. So if you want to go and invoke this my method, you have to say here my method, and if you say run, you can see now, you can see now when I say run, it is running that hello world, right? The one which we had previously. So if you want to go and run this subroutine.python, you have to right click on this and say run subroutines, right? So there it is. You can see now it is running code 1, it is running code 2 because you have said run my method, and it is also running code 3, but this code 3 is outside the scope of the method. So in other words, if I go and comment this and if I go and run it again, right click and run, right? So you can see it just runs code 1 and code 2, and you can always go and pass parameters to methods. You can just say param here, and you can go and concatenate like this. So if I go and pass here, learning Python, it should print the same. So so there it is. So the white spaces and indentation, they matter a lot, when it comes to Python syntaxes. In Python, the other important thing other than white spaces and indentation is the new line. For example, if you have ever coded in C and C++ or C# and Java, if you want to start with a new syntax or a new code line, then you have to use semicolon, right? But in Python, if you want to go and start a new code, you have to just press enter. So for example, you can see if I want to go and write, okay, print some other statement, I will just put it down. I don't have to use a semicolon to differentiate it. Said and done that, Python does allow still, if you are on the same line, you can still use semicolon. It is there, but you don't need to. You can be simple, right? So basically you can keep it simple by just pressing enter. So this code will also run, but if you want, this code will also run, right? So in Python, when you put a new line, that means you want to write some new code of line, right? So this enter signifies that this is a new line of code. Indentation with a white space signifies that is it a part of that method or the class, or it is not. So remember that whenever you are coding in Python, white spaces, indentation and new line matters a lot. Now the way we have single data types in Python, you can also go and create collections. The most used collection in Python is the list. So for example, you can see here I'm going and I'm creating a list here. So to create a list, again, you don't have to define any kind of data type. You have to just say the variable name. You have to put a square bracket and start putting the values by the comma separation. So this creates a list. If you go and if you try to print the type of it, it should show as a list. So if I go and say type, let us go ahead and print this list 1. So there it is. You can see that, again, let's go ahead and run that specific file. You can see that it is still running the old file, right? So I've created a list.py. So you can see now when I right click here and I say run, it goes and runs the list.py and it says that this is of type list. If you want to go and see the first value of the list or any value of the list, then you can go and you can use your list1 and you can use the reference here. So for example, I want to display the first value, so I will say 0. Remember that list is 0 indexed, so you can see it's displaying me Shiv here, right? In the same way, I can go and I can display, let us say 1, so that will go and display me Raju, right? So list is 0 index. In other words, the first value of the element, this is by the value 0, you can fetch it. This is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. One of the things in Python which is very interesting is you can go and you can fetch the last value of the list by just putting here -1. So by just putting -1, you will see that it will actually go and get the last value ABC. If you want to go and print a range, you can use the colon sign here. So you can see here I'm saying print from 1 to 3. So remember we have 0, 1, 2 and 3. So what this will do is this will exclude 0, right? Because it is not in the range of 1 to 3. Also it will exclude 3. So it will just print 1, 2. So when you're giving the range out here, it will print 1, 2 and it will exclude this 3 from here. So it will just print 1 and 2. So if I go and run this, you can see here I'm seeing Raju and test. You can also use the negative sign here. So for example, if you want to print from back, you can say -3 to -1. So it will actually go and print from back actually. So you can see now it is printing from -3 to -1, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3. So -3 to -1, right? So it's actually just printed Raju and test. If you want to go and do a for loop from the list, you can say here for, let's say x or temporary variable, some kind of temporary variable in list1 and then colon. And remember, you shouldn't forget the indentation and white spaces. When you're doing for loops, when you're doing functions, when you're doing classes, indentation and white spaces will define the start of the for loop, the start of the function and the end of the for loop and end of the function. So here I'll just say print the temp. And then to end the function, to end the for loop, that's what it is, right? So if I go and run this, this will just go and loop through all the records and print them. Oh, for list1, I'm sorry, run. So there you can see it has printed all the things in the list. if you want to go and check in the list that is an item existing or not, you can say here if let's say Shiv in list 1, then print found, right? So with this it will go and it will check if Shiv has been found or not. So you can say it is found. But if I say Shiva, let's say, it will say it will not do anything, right? So so that was a very simple introduction to list. So basically at one end, Python provides you simple data types, but at the other end, you can use collections like list and tuple. So we'll cover that in the coming up classes, but I just want to make sure that I introduce to you list. So this was a small demonstration of list. Later on in the further classes, we will go more detail into list, into tuples and so on. Now, one of the things, which unknowingly I did very much wrong in this tutorial is, and I'm extremely sorry for this, is that I have created all these Python files inside the virtual environment, right? So whenever you are creating the files, it should be outside the virtual environment. So when I was teaching the white spaces and the new line and the indentation, I came to know that there is something fishy. So I'm going to go and copy all these files. I'm going to go and take these files and move it to the outside directory, that is outside the venv environment. So that is, you can see now the Python files are outside the virtual environment. So whenever you are actually coding using Pycharm and in Python, the virtual environment folder should be kept separate. You shouldn't be putting the Python files inside it. So by mistake, when I started this tutorial, I actually started putting all the Python files inside it. So I'm extremely sorry for it. So you can see that I moved all the Python files outside. Now, as soon as I move the files outside the virtual environment, you can see that I'm seeing some warnings out here saying pep8 blank line at the end of the file, pep8 block comment, and so on. So what is PEP? PEP stands for Python Enhancement Proposal. It is nothing but it is a design document, or it's a documentation which says that how Python should work, or how Python should function, for the community. So it's a design document for the community to say that, how Python should be working. And this PEP8 specifically talks about how the indentation, how the new line, how the formatting should actually take place. For example, you can see here, it says pep8 blank and line at the end of the file. So basically he's saying that put a blank line at the end of the file. So blank line at the end of the file. Let's see. You can see top here, expected 2 blank lines after the class. So this is 1 blank line, and I will put 1 more blank line. So you can see that warning has gone off. Now this looks like a comment out here. So it's saying that he is expecting a blank line. So there's a blank line. So you can see now that error has gone off. If you see out here, it's saying expecting a white space before this. So expecting a white space. Okay, white space before this, right? So there shouldn't be any white space. Def method should be in the lower case. So you can see this pep8 is nothing but it is like, guidelines, which says that how your indentation should take place, right? So you can see that when I was inside the virtual environment, these rules were not applied by Pycharm, but now that I'm outside the virtual environment, I'm in the right directory, these rules are getting applied. Also, if you want to go and put an else, then you can go and say else print not found. And if you want to go and put an else if, means if you have one more if condition over here, then we need to use elif. So elif, if Shiva is in the list, if Shiva 1 is in the list, must be, then display print found, or else if none of these conditions work, then fall back to the default, right? So for else if, you need to use elif, and for else it's normally the simple else. Now the way we had the list, we also have one more data type collection which is called as an array. So if you want to go and use an array, you can say import array as ARR module, right? and then you can say ARR module, use the array function and create a list, which is having decimals or double, so you can see that this is all double. If you want to just go ahead and have an integer, then we can say I, right? So you can say here 1. So integer means it does not have the decimal part to it, 1, 2 and 3, right? So you can go and you can create an array, and so to create the array you will import the array module, right? So this is the alias name, please note. So import array, the array is the actual module name, but in my program I will refer it by ARR module, because if I don't use a kind of alias, then look at the syntax, it becomes like array.array, right? So if you put an alias here saying as ARR, then we can say okay, ARR.array, right? So by using alias names you can avoid confusion, and you can, if you have long module names, then it becomes shorter, right? So I can go and I can run this. So we can go and we can run the array, right click and run. So this will just go ahead and print the array as it is. Now one of the questions which can come into your mind is that, so what is the difference between a list and array? So in other words, I can always go ahead and create a list like this, list 1, which are having numbers 1, 2 and 3, and I can go ahead and I can print this list 1, right? So the question comes is that, what is the difference between this list out here and an array? Because if you run both of them, both of them work. Now list can take any data type. So for example, I can go and say that this is 1, and the next I can say that this is Shiv, and it will not complain anything to me. It will say okay, it's 1, it is Shiv, then it can be a decimal. But in case of an array, it is more strongly typed. For example, I am saying that this array is of type integer. You can say this is I, right? So I cannot go and put a character out here. I cannot go and do this here. This will give me exception. So you can see it's giving me exception out here. Even I cannot go and put a decimal, because an integer does not have a decimal. So even if I put like 2.1, right, and if I try to run this, it will still give me exception. So it says that it has got a float and so on, right? So integer argument expected, and it has got a float. Now one of the most common things what you will do as a programmer is read and write from files, right? So you can see that I have a file here, file1.txt, which has like 2 or 3 lines, 1, 2, 3. So now let us say if you want to go and read that, you can say f is equal to open. So open the file. What is the file? The file is file1.txt, and we want to open it in the read only mode, right? And then we can go and say here for data in f, right? So go ahead and print the data. So print data, and you will say run file. So you can see like 1, 2, 3, right? So you can see here like it's displaying me the data what is there inside the file. Now one of the things you can notice out here, it is actually printing 2 lines out here. So after 1 it is printing 2 lines, and after 2 it is printing 2 lines, right? So we have only 1 line out here. So where is it printing the extra line from? When you actually go and do a print using the print statement of Python, it actually prints an extra line. So if you want to go and remove that extra line, you can go and say end with nothing. So now if I go and run, you can see that it does not show me those extra lines. So that was a very simple command of opening the file from Python and reading it. Now you can see I have said here comma R. So this R means actually I am reading in a read only mode, right? But if you want to go and write the file, then you have to use W. If you want to go and append the file, then you will use A. So depending on by which mode you want to open the file, you can go and specify after the name of the file. One of the most important things when it comes to data types in Python, which we need to understand, is casting. Casting is nothing but it is a process of converting from one data type into another data type. For example, now let us say I have this I is equal to 100. So I is actually an integer, right? But now let us say I want to take this I and convert it into a float. So if I want to do that, then I have to say f is equal to float, and then I give the value of I, right? So if I now try to print this f, it should actually show me decimals. So if I try to run this, run data type, you can see now it is showing me as 100.0, Why? Because it has tried to convert it into a float. So when you talk about float, there is a decimal, right? So this is termed as casting. Now, one of the things which you need to understand when you're doing casting is that it is possible that you can have a loss of data. For instance, now let us say, what if this was a float? Let us say this was 100.10. Assume that this was a float, and if you are casting from a float to an integer, right? So in this case, now what will happen is, for example, you can see now I've just changed the variables. So now this is the float value is 100.10, and I'm trying to cast it from a float to an integer. So it will actually go and exclude these decimals out. So if you see now, if I go and run this, you can see it is showing me as sorry, this is an int. I'm so sorry. So if you now go and try to run this, you can see that it is showing me as 100. Why? Because you have casted it to an int, and in int it will not take decimals, right? So casting is nothing but it is a process of converting from one data type to another data type. That is the first thing to remember. And the second important thing to remember is, while you are doing casting, it is possible that you can have loss of data. Python is definitely a great framework. It's a great language. But what makes it more greater is the other frameworks which have evolved around from Python. So using Python, many other frameworks are created like SciPy, NumPy, Pandas, and so on. And these frameworks has what made Python very famous in the market. So now let us say that you are working on a Python project and you want to go and add one of these frameworks. Then you need to go to the file, you will go to settings, and then you will go to project interpreter, right? So you will go to project interpreter, and over here you can go and you can add, you can click on this plus sign and you can add whatever packages you want, right? So for example, now let us say I want to go and add a package here called as SciPy. So you can see here I'm going and I'm trying to add a package called as SciPy. This SciPy is nothing but a package which is to do scientific calculations, which is to do mathematical calculations. So you can see here that I have clicked on install, and once the installation is complete, you can see down below this installation is going on, and once the installation is complete, I should be able to use SciPy in my project. So remember that if you want to go and add the references, file setting, you will go and you will click on this plus sign, you will type that framework out. Like for example, I can also type NumPy, and you will say install packages, and that will start getting installed in your project, right? So you can see here down below there is a small message which has come up saying installed packages SciPy. So congrats. So this is a very nice what you call a stage now, wherein you know how to go and read from a list, you know the if else conditions, you know how to write subroutines, you understand the data types of Python, you understand casting, you understand how to write arrays and so on. So now it is now time to go and apply all this in Python and do something more practical, right? So here is what I'm going to do now. So take this small example out here. You can see that I have created a file here called as data1.txt, and in this we will go and do something called as the regression analysis. So we will go and apply regression analysis by using SciPy and Python. So what is this small example all about? So in this example, let's say that you have a data here wherein you have the number of people. So you have like 2 people and how much weight in kgs they can pick up. So for example, you have 2 people who can pick up like 10 kg, then you have 3 people who can pick up 15, and then 4 people can pick up must be 17, and then must be 10 people can pick up, let us say 25, right? So now I want to go and establish a relationship between the number of people and the weight that can be lifted, right? So I want to go and use Python, and I want to go and take this data and train my machine. And once I train my machine, my machine should be able to tell me that, okay, for 20 people, how many weight they can lift, right? So you can see here now I have some sample data, by which I can go and I can train my machine, right? And let us see that how we can apply this in Python. So first thing for this, we need to use something called as the regression analysis. What is a regression analysis? If you the regression analysis helps us to find the connection between two variables, two numerical variables. So for example, at this moment you can see we have a data set wherein we have two values, right? The number of people and the weight lifted. So regression analysis will help you to find out the dependency and the connection between these two variables. So how do we do that, right? So the first thing is we need to go and read this file into a Python list, right? So I'm going to go now and create a small Python file here. So Python file, and let's name this Python file as my regression, right? My regression.py, right? So first thing, let us go and read that that file. So f is equal to open the file name. The file name is data1.txt, and we want to open it in a read-only mode, right? And now let us go ahead and create two lists. So one list which will have the weight which is lifted, right? And the another list which will have the number of people, right? No people, right? So we have these two things, right? So now go ahead and do a for each loop. So for x in, or we can say for data in f, let us start reading it, right? So we want the weight and the data to be loaded, the number of people to be loaded in the list, right? So that thing we are going to go and do out here. So here we will fill the list, right? First thing, we will fill the list. Now if you look at this data.txt file, every record is a comma separated value. So in other words, we have this data and this data is having a comma separated, right? So what we need to do is we need to go and do a split. So what does the split do? The split says that, okay, it will take the first value, that is 2, and put it in an array. It will take the second value 10 and it will put it into a different variable, right? So by using the data.split, it will actually go and create two different variables, one which is having the number of people and the other which is having the weight, right? So I can say here no of people. So that's the first value which will pop in, and the other one is the weight lifted, right? Underscore weight. You can see that I have named that as underscore because it tells me that it's a local variable, right? So now I can go and let me just go and check, once print, let me see the number of people and let me see the weight lifted. At least let us check, if the number of people and weight lifted are seen properly or not, so that this will ensure that I am reading right? So I'm going to go and run this my regression.py. So I'll just go and run this and let's see. So I can see that it is reading 2 and then 10, and that is right? So things are working. So this is good. Now we need to go and take this number of people and add it to the no people array. So if you remember, we have this no people array, right? Remember, the whole goal here is to go and fill this into this weight and this no people list, right? And then we will give it to the linear regression formula for it. So the linear regression formula needs the weight and the number of people to be separate list. So I'm going to go and say a number of people dot append. So whatever it is, no of people. Please note that this is an integer. So we are going to go and typecast it. Remember, typecasting we have just learned in the previous section of the video. And then in the weight, we will go and again append weight. So weight is actually on float, right? So because it's having also decimals, it can have decimals, right? So I'm going to go and just say this is weight underscore weight. Great. So there it is. Now we have read the records of the CSV into two different lists. One is which is having the number of people and the other one which is having the weight. In order to implement linear regression, we need to use the sklearn library. So if you remember, we had referenced third-party libraries. So if you remember, we had gone to file settings, and over here we had this project interpreter where we had referenced SciPy. In the same way, I have referenced sklearn as well. So from the sklearn, I've imported the linear regression class out here. So now let us go here and create an object of it. So linear obj is equal to linear regression, right? So what this line does is this actually goes and creates an object of linear regression. Later on we will do object-oriented programming with Python in detail, but at this moment, just so that we can go and run this application, just keep in mind that this code out here just goes and creates an object. And now I'll go and I will say linear object dot fit, right? So what exactly this fit method? This fit method actually goes and trains the machine by using your data. So when you talk about linear regression, it actually establishes the relationship between two variables by using this formula y is equal to mx plus c, where y is what you want to predict and x is what you will input, right? So over here now I want to predict that how much weight can be lifted, right? And the input is the number of people, right? So basically x is actually the number of people and weight is the y, right? So for that, we have to go and say linear obj dot fit. So this fit says get trained by these samples. So the first sample is the x. So x is the number of people, right? And the y is the weight, right? So this is the weight. So weight, okay. So there it is. So you can see now, so this is the x and this is the y. So remember, y is what you want to predict. So I want to predict that how much weight can be lifted and number of people is the x, right? So let me go and just run this, if this much lines of code actually works or not. So I'm going to go and run my regression and let us see what happens. So you can see now it is showing me an exception here saying expected 2D array. So this this number of people, right, he is expecting it as an 2D array. So what I'm going to go and do here is I'm going to go and create an array of an array, right? So I'm going to go and just put this square bracket out here, which will make the number of people as an 2D array, right? 2D array means in a single element you have multiple array collections, right? So with this, at least let me see that if my model gets trained, so 2D array. So this is reshape. Looks like it is expecting the weight as so it looks like it is expecting the weight as an 2D array, right? So let me go and put the weight as in 2D array. Let us see. So there is some exception out there. It says number of people, weight. Oh God, like this is NO of people, right? Like this underscore. So this is actually this variable. I was using the local variable. This underscore number of people is a local variable, right? So this is actually, it has to be in 2D array, definitely. So sorry for this, but I do not delete my errors. I actually try to rectify them. So, right. So remember that I was using underscore NO of people, right? Which was actually a simple variable, right? So now let us see this runs or not, right? So that it is good. So that means now you can see my linear regression model is now trained, right? Now let us go and try to question the linear regression model. So we'll say linear obj dot predict. So go ahead and predict, what will happen for, so we have 10 people. Let us say what will happen for 5 people, right? So if I put 5 people, what will happen, right? So I'm going to go and put 5 here. You can see here, look at the predict. I'm again using a 2D array. So an array inside an array. So that's the format it wants, right? So let us go and see this. I'll go and run this. And for 5 people, he says that 17 kgs will be lifted. So if I go and just test it, so it is saying yes, 17.16. So it is possible, right? 5 people can be 17.16. We can go and do on back testing. Back testing means I can go and just put 3 people and see that does he give me the same kind of an output, right? So 3 people 13, so 3 people 15. So that's a good approximation, right? So now remember that my data is extremely small. Go ahead and put large amount of data. You will find that the linear regression model would give you a better output. Now, one of the very important things is, when you are working on big projects, big application, you shouldn't be coding in this way. You shouldn't code like this flat, right? You should code in a object oriented way. in a structured way, right? So again, Python is an object-oriented programming language, so it supports classes, it supports inheritance, it supports all the normal object-oriented programming principles, right? So if you want to go and create what you call a class in Python, so let us see. So object-oriented programming. So if you want to create a class in Python, you have to just say class, and let's say I will say class customer, right? And if you want to go and create a property, so it's like customer name and whatever it is, right? So customer name, customer code, right? And the end of the class is just defined by the backward indentation. If you want to go and create a method in this class, you can say def, and you can say, let's say add, right? So let's say that this is a method which will add it to the database. It will add the customer to the database, right? So I can just go and say here print add called. So you can see that if you want to go and create a class, you can just say class customer and then put the indentation. If you want to create a method, you have the def keyword, which we have already seen in the previous class, right? Now if you want to go and call this customer class, you can say here, let's say you want to create a customer object, you can say cust obj is equal to customer, right? And then you can say cust obj dot, let's say you want to call the add method, right? So now I can go and I can run this. So if you go and if you run this, run object-oriented programming, you can see that he has created the instance of the customer and he has called the add method. So that brings us to the end of this 1 hour of training, and in this training we have covered 18 chapters, and I hope that now you are feeling confident with Python, and also you get an idea of how to create a project in Python. Now this was a free training series, a training video, so that you can get a glimpse of Python, you can get hands-on and feel confident. But if you want to go and learn more advanced lessons of Python, please visit my site questpond.com. And if you are from Mumbai, I would suggest to come to my institute, which is at Andheri. I teach offline there. We have 2 days of training lecture. Please attend. If you want, you can attend those sessions as well. So thank you very much. Thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you and happy learning.